Welcome, Bronco Nation, my game preview for Boise State versus Wyoming. Boise State back on the blue this week after a bye week, coming up against Wyoming, who is also coming off a bye week. The Broncos 3-4 after a loss versus Colorado State 2 weeks ago, and Wyoming coming off a loss of their own versus Air Force. So 2 losses to Colorado teams there by both these programs, and both coming off of bye weeks. They'll be facing this weekend on October 28th at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Central Time, and they will be playing on FS2. Now, this is going to shock a lot of people, especially anybody who has watched the last few games for Boise State or the last few games for Wyoming, because right now, according to ESPN and Vegas, Boise State is actually the favored team in this matchup. Boise State given a 61.9% chance of winning this game, and Vegas giving them a 5-point advantage in this matchup. Now, we're going to talk about this matchup. We're going to talk about the series history between these two teams. We're going to talk about key players for both programs. I'm going to present keys to the game for Boise State to go out and be able to get a win versus Wyoming, and then I will present a score prediction at the end. But I think that this is very surprising at the very beginning of this video to come in and have this idea that Wyoming is the underdog when you look at what Wyoming has done this season. They're 5-2. They have wins versus Texas Tech, Fresno State ranked when they beat them. They almost beat Air Force. They only lost by 7 points versus Air Force, who is now ranked. They're one of their only losses. They have 2 losses on the season, one to ranked Air Force and the other to Texas, who they only barely lost to. Yes, the score margin was a little bit bigger than the game actually showed, but they were right in that game until late in the fourth quarter, and then the depth of Texas took over, and they were able to get a couple quick scores at the end there to escape with a nice score overall. But Wyoming was this close to beating, at the time, top 5 Texas on their own field. So this is not an easy team that Boise State is going to have to match up against this week, and Boise State has not been performing well. They're 3-4. They've lost both 2 major non-conference matchups, and they're just coming off of a conference loss in a very devastating fashion, and both teams are coming off of bye weeks, so there's not even the advantage of coming into the game with a bye because Wyoming's matching you with a bye week. The only reason that I can think that Boise State is favored in this game, besides the name recognition, is the fact that it's on the blue. It is incredibly tough to win on the blue. We all know that, and it has become tougher to win there since Jeremiah Dickey has taken over. What he has done with the game environment, and especially the light show, the new laser light show that as the Boise State has, it was tough to win there before. It's now twice as hard to win there because not only is Jeremiah Dickey maximizing the attendance potential of Boise State, they are one of the top 20 teams overall in attendance percentages so far this season per their stadium capacity. That all has to come from Jeremiah Dickey. So Jeremiah, it's not the team's performance. Boise State's 3-4. They're having one of the worst seasons ever, and they're set up to have one of the worst seasons ever in school history in the FBS era, going all the way back to 1997. However, despite that, despite a poor beginning and a not great middling performance so far, Boise State has continued to pack it out, and that is because of Jeremiah Dickey and what he has done to make Boise State such a go-to entertainment location for the city of Boise, Idaho. It is an incredible job that he's done, and that laser show, when Boise State was down versus San Jose State, and the laser lights that came on late in the game, it really served as a kind of a 3-part effect. It had the effect of getting the crowd back into the game. It helped definitely amp up the Boise State sideline, and it didn't help the Wyoming side. It definitely is kind of just watching it on TV and actually being able to go there this fall and be able to see what that looks like. It's a tough environment, when the crowd is rocking and the lights are all off and the blue is flashing around. And I mean, it is a very intimidating environment for opposing teams, and it definitely shook their confidence and helped shift the momentum towards Boise State. So before we get into this video, and we're going to talk about how these teams match up, and does Boise State stand a chance? Does Wyoming stand a chance? Where do we stand right now? Everybody should be giving Jeremiah Dickey huge props right now that Boise State even is favored in this game and has a chance of coming away with a win versus a team as good as Wyoming, despite the way the team has played so far. I put all of that credit on Jeremiah Dickey. Now, before we get into the rest of this video, go down in the comments section of the video. Give me your score prediction, whether you're a Wyoming fan or a Boise State fan. Go down, give me your score prediction, give me any thoughts you have on the game, and we can talk about that when we get to the end of the video here. So series history for Boise State, and Wyoming, it's been very one-sided in Boise's favor. 16-1. We all remember the one loss, but it opened up in 2002, Boise State getting the win. Back in the Ryan Dinwiddie days, 35-13 Boise State win. And then several more wins in a row, some of them lopsided, some of them close, but all of them wins until 2016. Boise State goes into Wyoming. It's always a tough place to play up there. They get to a pretty nice lead initially, and then Wyoming finds their way back. They had some help from future NFL first rounder, now Buffalo Bills quarterback, so they had some help with a good quarterback, but Wyoming defense was kind of the story of that game. We all remember the safety and the safety dance and everything that came with that, and Wyoming ended up winning by 2 points, 28-30. Now, since then, Boise State has maintained their winning record versus Wyoming. In the last game in 2022, Boise State winning that 20-17, but you'll notice how close that score spread was. In the last 6 matchups since that 2016 loss, 5 of them have been wins by 10 points or less. So 6 wins overall, but 5 of them were close games within 10-point spread of Wyoming being able to pull off a victory. And a lot of those have been defensive matchups, a lot of them in poor weather conditions, a lot of them up in Laramie. But they have been a tough team to play, whether at Laramie or on the Blue. And now we come and face a team that is the best defense. This is one of the best defenses Wyoming's ever had, and they're the best defense in the Mountain West versus a Boise State offense that is struggling to find their way right now. Very chaotic, to say the least. So when we start looking at the key players for this program, the focus is going to be on what Boise State brings to the table, but also how do they counter Wyoming's strength. Well, Wyoming's strength is their defense, so it should be no surprise that one of our key players is both an offensive player and somebody who could change the tide of the season for Boise State. Boise State early in the year lost a couple of key guys. One of those key guys that they lost in the first game versus Washington was George Holani. He's going to be my key player of the game. The number one key player of the game for Boise State is George Holani. Coming back, only had 10 carries, 51 yards, got injured on a punt return, and then we haven't seen him since. This is his first game. Over halfway through the season, finally coming back in to lend a hand in the offense, and it's an offense that right now is struggling to find their way. Ashton Jeanty is firing all cylinders. We'll talk about that more when we get to the keys to the game and how we can properly use George Holani, give you a little peek ahead about what we'll be talking about there. But George Holani was one of the most explosive weapons on this team prior to getting injured. He was the proven back for Boise State coming into the season. We knew that Ashton Jeanty was going to have a great year as well, but we thought that it was going to be alongside in somewhat of a 50-50, 60-40 maybe role with George Holani taking the lead. And he got hurt, and Ashton Jeanty exploded. But George Holani is a true threat for Boise State. He's one of the most unique running backs Boise State's ever had. You can't really categorize him by comparing him to anybody else. He's got elements of He's got elements of Jeremy McNichols, but he's also got elements of Ian Johnson in him. He's kind of a small, shifty, good receiving back that also has power and speed. He's really a very unique running back. In the future, when we see Boise State running backs, he'll probably be a player I compare them to because he is just that unique of a running back that you look and you start trying to find players that match his style. So this is going to be a very interesting game to see how George Holani fits back in the offense, and if in a key moment when the Boise State season looks like it's on the rocks and maybe tunneling into the depths, can he be a player that brings Boise State back towards the light? So Boise State, number 1, George Holani. Number 2 for me is going to be a linebacker, another guy back, DJ Schramm. DJ Schramm injured in the UCF game, saw him after the game, was able to get a photo, and he had a brace on. He had an ice pack on and a brace on his shoulder. And I said, wow, I hope that's not it's not a long-term injury. He said, no, I'll be fine. And he played the next game versus San Diego State, kind of aggravated that shoulder a little bit more, and he's been out. He's been injured since that game, since San Diego State. So this is his first game back as well. Only 15 tackles so far in the season. The team leader coming back from last year. Maybe he is a guy that a defense that front 7 has not been the issue. It's been the secondary, but he was a leader. He's a captain for this program. It's a lot when you lose a leader on the defense. The linebackers or the quarterbacks of the defense, when you lose a team captain like that, who's now on the sideline, the defensive vibe is going to be off. Now, guys have stepped up. Number 3, key player overall for Boise State, Marco Notarani, has stepped up and been a huge playmaker for Boise State, taken over really from where Schramm left off in the game where Schramm started to experience that injury, that first injury versus UCF. He exploded. He'd played a little bit versus Washington, but he exploded versus UCF, and he's not looked back. 52 tackles, 3 sacks, a pass defended, and a forced fumble. He's been the defensive leader for Boise State, taking over from where DJ Schramm left off. This is also a storyline of how can those two players work together. The team captain who's been out, and now the young defensive player who has stepped up, the very young linebacker who stepped up into DJ Strand's shoes and filled them exceptionally. Can they work together to both continue on that same level of success? Those are both going to be big storylines. So looking at these three guys, especially when you're matching up against a Wyoming defense, you're going to need the best offensive capacity you can bring, and having a leader on offense return like George Lonnie, but also coming up against a Wyoming offense that has done enough to get their defense the wins in these games. So they've been competent, they've been balanced, and Andrew Peasley, who we're going to look at here for Wyoming, has played well this season. The linebacker core is going to be huge in this game, stopping the running game of Wyoming, which is one of their major threats. That's the Craig Bohl's teams are always built off of that run-focused attack, so the linebacker core being big to both stop that and also be able to drop back and assist the secondary, which has had a lot of struggles so far this season. Having a player back like Schramm and being able to enable Notarani to continue to maintain his lead in this defense while also allowing Schramm to take his place as the leader on this program is going to be an interesting one to see how those players mesh together. It's an exciting moment for Boise State fans to see both these players playing at peak capacity, hopefully, together on the field versus Wyoming. Now, back to Wyoming for their key players. We already mentioned one of them, Andrew Peasley. He's their quarterback. I said if Wyoming could figure out how to get a competent passing game this season, they would have a shot at the Mountain West Championship game. Now, I didn't think that was going to happen. We didn't see the best of Andrew Peasley last season, the transfer from Utah State. I didn't think they were going to have an offense to complement their defense. We all knew the defense for Wyoming was going to be the best in the Mountain West coming in, but it didn't look like they were going to have any offense. Well, the reason that they are 5-2, the reason they almost beat Texas, the reason that they almost beat Air Force, all of those factors have come down to the fact that Wyoming's offense has stepped up. Again, they have been prolific, but they have been competent. And Wyoming's offense has ran through Andrew Peasley, who has been involved in both the passing game and the running game. He was injured. He came back. He's had 970 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions only. So only 2 picks and 12 touchdowns for a Wyoming team that doesn't have an elite wide receiver core. It's just Andrew Peasley's been able to find the holes in the defense and to create those holes through the use of his legs to soften up the defense and also find them with his arm. 203 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. He has 5 players with over 100 yards receiving. So while they don't have any, Eric McAllister-esque wide receivers, they have a wide receiver core, mix of wide receivers and tight ends that they are distributing the ball to competently throughout all of them. He's only averaging about a 60% completion percentage, is just under 60 at 59%. But when he gets the ball out, and a lot of those are drops, but when he gets the ball out, he is putting it in a place for his guys to go make a play on the ball. Now, another player that's going to be a big help to him, who hopefully will be back this game for Wyoming, not hopefully from a Boise State perspective, but from a Wyoming perspective, hopefully back, will be running back, I'm going to mess this name up, but Whaley, I think Harrison Whaley, I think I said that okay. He has been injured since the Fresno State game. Didn't play versus Air Force, but he's projected to be able to come back for Boise State. Craig Bohl said his injury was not season-ending. It was a lower body injury, and you always had to worry about that for running backs, but he looks like he's going to be able to come back for this game, and if he is, this is going to be a Wyoming offense that is going to be very tough to stop because he is a running back that's averaged 7.2 yards per carry, 520 yards in the season, 3 touchdowns, 7.2 yard average, and while the story of the season for Wyoming is definitely their defense, they have been winning these games because of the play of Whaley and Andrew Peasley, and they definitely missed him versus Air Force. They were still able to come out and put up competent offensive effort forward, but they definitely missed him versus Air Force. If he's able to come back, this is going to be a Wyoming team that, a Boise State defense that has not been elite. It's going to be very, very tough to stop them. Now, talking about defense that is elite, we've mentioned several times, is Wyoming's defense, and the leader of that defense is their linebacker, Easton Gibbs. 6'2", 230 pounds, nice build for a linebacker. Not huge, massive, but he plays massively. 66 tackles, 4 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles. He's one of 2 linebackers on this program with over 50 tackles so far, and there are multiple guys on this program with 30-plus tackles, even getting down into the defensive line numbers. So this is a Wyoming defense that overall has over 70 more tackles on the season than Boise State does. They play total team defense. They're a complete blanket. They held Texas in check for most of the game, and they are a strong, competent offense out of the Big 12, moving to the SEC next season. So this is a Wyoming defense that has a strong leader here in Gibbs. He reminds me a little bit of the, I forget the linebacker's name, but of the guy that was able to get the safety versus Boise State in 2016. So this is going to be a tough game for Boise State to come and play. And again, it's one of those reasons why you look at it on paper. Can Boise State win this game? Yes, of course they can win this game. They could have won almost every game in their season minus on their schedule, minus the Washington game. But when you look at who they're playing, it boggles my mind that Wyoming is not the favored team in this matchup. That's a nod of respect to Boise State, I think, and also the job Jeremiah Dickey's done, like I said, on the blue. It's hard to win on the blue, but this is not just a competent Wyoming team. This is a great Wyoming team. This is a Wyoming team that should be ranked. Wyoming, Fresno State, and Air Force all should be ranked right now. Unfortunately, a little bit of East Coast bias. Wyoming and Fresno State outside of it right now. Thankfully, Air Force getting the ranking and attention that they deserve. But this is a Wyoming team that I am projecting to be one of the two programs, aside from Air Force, that are competing for the Mountain West Championship game at the end of the season. Wyoming and Fresno State, both of those teams have a solid shot of getting to the Mountain West Championship game for a rematch versus Air Force Falcons, who look like they have a lock for the championship at this point. So this is a team that Boise State is going to have to go all out to beat. What are they going to have to do to beat this team? Well, key number one is don't ruin a good thing. Don't ruin a good thing. Boise State's offense right now is really in shambles. It's a complete wreck. They have shattered quarterback confidences from both Green and Maddox Madsen. Maddox Madsen, who was playing great before, now in this terrible two-quarterback system, is completely at a loss. His interception numbers have gone way up. His incompletions have gone way up. I mean, Taylon Green is not looking his best self. Neither of these quarterbacks are performing at peak efficiency. There is no stability in the quarterback position. They're both completely out of rhythm. However, there is one place where Boise State is hitting their stride, where there is stability, where there is rhythm, one place where Boise State is performing at not just a passable level or a good level, but an elite level, and that is Ashton Jeanty in the running game. While there's no stability in the quarterback room, the shift of stability and focus on the team has gone to Ashton Jeanty. He's been their rock that they've been able to rely on and know that no matter what's happening quarterback-wise, he's going to put them in a place where they'll have a chance to go out and win the game, score points, be a team that is able to move the ball offensively. 868 yards, 5.7 yard average, 395 yards receiving. Prior to the bye week, he was NCAA leader in rushing and receiving combined. I think he still is. He's one of only 100. So he is the only running back, so not one of only, but the only running back in the top 100 in the nation receiving. So he is one of the top receivers in the country, in addition to being one of the best running backs in the country as well this season. So this is a playmaker who has hit his stride. He didn't just take over from Helani. He took over and exploded. Jeanty is the offense right now. He is the source of stability. While before the season, you could have seen a mix 50-50 of George Helani, Ashton Jeanty complementing each other and working to get stronger together as the season goes on, with Helani being the leader. At this point, it's Jeanty's team. This is Jeanty's team. Helani's coming back. We are excited for what he can do. He is one of my key players of the game. He has something to contribute, but you cannot forget that this is Ashton Jeanty's team, and you do not want to mess up a good thing. Right now, Ashton Jeanty, 212 yards rushing versus Colorado State. He is hitting his peak right now. Boise State should do nothing to throw hurdles in his way that slow him down. So whatever it takes for Ashton Jeanty to continue to be Ashton Jeanty, that's what Boise State's game plan should drive around. And right now, that looks like primary snaps going to Ashton Jeanty and a lot of plays early on to get him into the game, getting some nice passes his way, and also allowing him to take over in the running game and get stronger as the game goes on. However, what George Helani's role can be, while Ashton Jeanty should be taking the majority of the snaps, 70% of the reps should be going to Ashton Jeanty right now, because that is what Boise State needs. Because of the way the season is developed, you don't want to wreck Ashton Jeanty's rhythm. What George Helani can do is he can be that change of pace running back that Boise State just hasn't been able to really find right now. They had a lot of injuries to guys. They were looking right now at Jean-Bray Dubar and Tyler Crow as their two backup running backs to spell Genty. And I don't know if it's because Jean-Bray Dubar is young and he just doesn't have a full grasp of the offense and he's not, as good a quality of blocker as some of the other guys. But Jean-Bray Dubar has not gotten the attention he's needed, not been able to be on the field enough to have the impact that I think he's capable of. And Tyler Crow, while he's one of my favorite players on the team, a walk-on story, came on and plays with absolute heart throughout every single match that he has a chance to contribute in. He's not an elite running back. I mean, everybody knows that. He's not a next level running back. He'll get you a hard foot 3 or 4 yards and occasionally break off for a few more, but he's not an elite speed, elusive, break tackles type of running back. George Holani is. George Holani can be your change of pace running back who can come in and be even more than a change of pace guy. Usually the change of pace, you see like 80%, 90% of the reps going to one guy and then 3 or 4 carries for the other guy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying George Holani should be involved in this game plan, but he should definitely be the change of pace running back who is perhaps getting a few more snaps than a change of pace guy would get. Ashton Genty needs to be the focus, allow him to take over the game like he's been doing, but when he is spelled, you now know that you have an elite, one of the best running backs, and if he hadn't gotten injured, statistically, I think he would have been one of the best running backs in school history behind him that's going to come in and hit you with the same force and level all the way through. In fact, I think NFL is where Holani's going at this point. He's going to, at least try. He's been hurt by this injury so far, but he's going to at least try and get a chance. I think he's going to get a shot. So there was no chance of him coming back, I think. But at this point, you almost wanted to say, man, the season's halfway through at this point. Maybe take an injury red shirt, come back at the end of next season and have another shot. But running backs only get so many years on their bodies before their short-term investment before they start to break down. So George Holani is definitely off to NFL, or at least trying to get to the NFL at the end of the season. So if he's going to be on this team, he's coming back and he's playing, he needs to be involved, but you cannot subvert what Ashton Genty is doing right now and add instability in addition to what's going on in the quarterback room to the running back room. If you had a solid number one quarterback that you had faith in, that you knew could get the game rolling for you, that you knew the offense could look to for a base, then you could do some kind of 50-50 shot and trying to mix Holani back into this game plan, but you don't. Ashton Genty is your offense right now. He is the stability, and the offense needs something that they can grasp a hold of and know that they have a focal point. And right now, that's Ashton Genty. Additional factors, George Holani's coming back. This is his first game. You want to work him in easy. You don't want to overwork him on his first action. He's going to be very raw, very rusty. So there's all those other factors as well. But the biggest one overall in the season is this is Ashton Genty's team. Let him carry the load. The second key, tight ends. This is a little bit of a repeat from last week's key, which said shift the focus off the wide receivers. Well, now I'm saying shift the focus clearly onto the tight ends. Boise State did try to get the tight ends involved in the game last week. Riley Smith catching a touchdown on a great pass, great play call. But right now, the wide receiver room has not stepped up. We all know that. Besides Eric McAllister, there hasn't really been anybody else to fill that third wide receiver slot, let alone really that second wide receiver slot. Cobbs and Bowens have both had games where one or the other has performed well, but neither of them have stepped up to elite role. You do have a couple playmakers, though, who have shown the ability to make explosive plays even at a higher level potentially than the wide receivers, and that's Matt Lauder and Riley Smith. Both of those receivers, tight ends right now, are under 100 yards receiving. I think that is an abysmal shame. I think they should be getting a much bigger chunk of this offense, especially with the two quarterback system. I hate it, but at this point, not me saying don't run the two quarterback system is not going to change anything. So at this point, I'm saying how can you run the two quarterback system the most effectively? Well, if you're going to have these two quarterbacks in, one who's more of a runner, one who's more of a passer, what is the position that can work with both of those? The tight ends. You can have a multiple tight end set, and you can throw out of that, and you can run out of that. You're going to have your best running potential out of a multiple tight end set, and when you have two tight ends like this who have good speed in the open field, who have good hands, who are playmakers in the receiving game, and you have a wide receiver core that outside of a couple of guys on the outside have not really proven themselves, you might even have a better chance of passing the ball with the tight ends, period. Now, especially when you're entering in the fact that you have a raw quarterback coming off the bench to throw a pass, having a nice, easy pass to a big player like a tight end is going to much improve the efficiency of the Boise State offense overall. It's going to help Maddox Madsen settle into the game, or Taylor Green, whoever is out there. It's going to help them find easy passes. It's going to help impact the running game, and it's going to help disguise your formation a little bit, because they might be expecting one thing based on the quarterback that's out there, but the formation also impacts that. If the formation looks pretty much the same because you have multiple tight end look either way, you're not just going to have the best, most effective running game out of that formation, but they're not going to be able to key off on that and say, okay, this is definitely a longer pass or something like that. You still have the ability to do both sides of the ball, rushing and passing, but you're going to be able to perform one side of those the most efficient manner out of the tight end set, and the other one right now looks like the receiving game could actually improve by having more of a focus on these big playmaker tight ends who have had some great catches, not a lot of significant drops out there. They have really been the playmakers that have been undervalued but definitely stepped up. So Boise State right now, if they're going to continue to run this two quarterback system, tight ends should be the focus. Multiple tight end set, Louder and Riley Smith out there as both blockers and receiving potential options. That, I think, is going to give Boise State the best chance to run this two-quarterback system to its max efficiency. Now, the third key of the game here is embrace the defensive battle. Don't come in expecting to blow them out. Even if this was a balanced, efficient Boise State offense that had one clear quarterback that knew what it was doing, that didn't have a head coach meddling in the offensive game plan, and this crazy two-quarterback system, even if they actually had a good, solid offense, as they have in the past versus Wyoming, they would still struggle. This is a team that's going to make you struggle. Now, it sucks when you're making yourself struggle more by introducing more moving parts and confusion like Boise State's doing with their system, but regardless, this is a defense that is going to make you struggle. Embrace the fact that that's going to happen. You're not going to be successful in every drive. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have passes hopefully just batted down, not turned over, but you're probably also going to have turnovers. You're going to have negative yards. Make the most opportunities you have and don't become disheartened by that. The fans in the stands understand that that's going to happen, and don't allow Wyoming to take you out of the game. Be loud, be strong the whole game, no matter what's happening in the Boise State offense. Eventually, hopefully, Boise State will take enough gut punches that they can weather the storm and come back, and their defense can play well enough to allow Boise State's offense to have a chance to win this game in the end. But a big part of that is going to be Boise State's crowd being able to maintain their energy level and not allow Wyoming to shift momentum in Boise's home stadium. Understand this is a defensive battle. Understand that Wyoming, they are going to be hard to stop. They're not a huge explosive thing. They're 160.3 yards passing, 164.4 yards rushing. Very balanced on both sides of the ball. But Wyoming's not going to score a lot of points either if the defense can step up. But just understand that just because you're not scoring points on every drive or maintaining long drives doesn't mean that the game is out of hand. That's just how you have to play Wyoming. Texas did that for 4 quarters before they were able to pull it out in the end. Boise State can do that. Boise State can hold Wyoming. This is an offense that Boise State can stop. It's Boise State defense that has been much maligned, especially in the secondary, but this is not an elite wide receiver core. This is a strong, gutsy quarterback who takes a lot of hits and is able to keep on trucking, but it's not an elite offense. It's a competent offense. And most importantly for Wyoming, it's an offense that knows who it is. It has a strong sense of its own identity, and it's able to go out and perform in a way that complements its defense. That's what makes Wyoming the most dangerous. But if Boise State's defense can continue to stop Wyoming, hold them to minimal points, and the offense can weather the early morale storm of maybe not having the success they want, there will be opportunities in the back end for Boise State to come back in and win this thing. They just have to weather not just the early storm, but maybe the 3-quarter storm before they have a chance in the 4th quarter. So just understand that coming in, that this is not going to be an offensive shootout. The defense has to be ready to come out and play because Boise State's offense is not going to get a lot of opportunities to score, period. So Boise State, on the other hand, has to make sure their defense is playing at a peak level to keep Wyoming from putting Boise State in too much of a hole, because it's going to be hard to come back versus this team. But just understand that it's going to be a low-scoring defensive affair, And from that point, you can build towards success in the fourth quarter if you hang on. So, summary of this team. Craig Bohl's team is everything that Andy Avalos wants his team to be. They are a strong, elite defensive unit that has a focus on the running game and a competent quarterback. That's what Andy Avalos wants at Boise State. He wants to build that run-heavy offense that helps give the defense lots of breathers with a strong, deep defense that's able to come in and hold opponents to low points. So it's going to be tough sitting across the sideline looking at the team that you want to be. Hopefully that inspires Andy Avalos and this coaching staff to coach at their top level, to be the coaching staff that they haven't been so far, especially from the head coach, to be the head coach that he wanted to be when he took this job for Boise State. This is a Boise State team that is coming off a bye week. They are healthy. They have the most players back that they've had this season, besides when they started the season, and they're focused. They have to be. After that loss versus Colorado State and the way it happened, that is a major wake-up call. If everything else that happened before that wasn't a wake-up call, that is a wake-up call. So Boise State is going to be coming into this game prepared and ready to play. However, on the other hand, Wyoming is also going to be doing that. They lost to Air Force in a close game that they thought they could win. They're angry. They're coming off a bye week. They look like they're going to be pretty healthy as well. Andrew Peasley's had time to fully recover. Looks like Harrison is going to be able to come back as well. So they're going to be a tough team. So you have two programs that are going to be operating at pretty much peak efficiency. We get to see what this team is really made of, this Boise State team. The injuries have been somewhat of a crutch that the coaching staff has kind of used as an excuse for why they've lost a few of these games. You know, they've had some struggles to deal with, but that's part of any season. Boise State right now, they don't have any of those excuses. This is the team. This is the roster. Boise State, if they're going to win a game, this is the team that you would want to do it with. Can Andy Avalos and his staff get that win? The issue is that this is a great Wyoming team. Any game against Wyoming, it's not really a rivalry, but Craig Bohl is one of the best coaches in the Mountain West, bar none. He's one of the few coaches in the Mountain West that I would be comfortable coming to Boise State in a next coaching search. And I did a video talking about who could be the next coach of Boise State, and he was one of my candidates. He is a great coach. He is a championship winning coach at the FCS level, and he's done things with Wyoming that nobody else could have done. He is a tough guy to beat. And right now, he has one of the best rosters defensively that he's ever had, and that is paired with a strong, competent offense that he has created. Despite the fact that they don't have an elite wide receiver room, despite the fact that they lost guys injury-wise in the running back room, and it's not a deep running back room, and despite the fact that they have a quarterback that struggled last season, none of that has slowed them down from becoming a force this season that looks like they might be on their way to a Mountain West Championship game. This is a very, very, very tough team to beat. If Boise State was running a system that made sense, they would still struggle to beat this team. Unfortunately, Boise State's not running a system that makes sense. I mean, the majority of Bronco Nation is starting, at least 50-50 right now, is starting to turn and understand that Andy Avalos is not the guy to take Boise State to the next level with this program. He's not even the guy to get them to the level they were before with this program. And I just don't see a way that this Boise State team, coached by this coach, is able to beat this Wyoming team, coached by Craig Bohl. I just don't see it. And so, unfortunately, I think that this is going to be another loss on the Blue this season. I think it's going to be another conference loss, and it's going to be a tough end of the season here as Boise State takes a loss versus Wyoming and then goes down the stretch versus Fresno State and Air Force and a Utah State team that can be either way. This is going to be a game that Boise State has to win. They absolutely have to win. If Andy Avalos wants a job next, at least, I mean, you can go a lot of ways on whether he would keep his job this season, regardless of what the record was. But if he wants to have a job that is not on the line, at the very least, not on the line next season, let alone at the end of this year, he has got to win this game. If Boise State wins this game, it will show that while I don't agree with the way they're doing things, this coaching staff is turning the team back in a direction that they should be. This is the prove-it game. The Memphis game, I said, was a prove-it point for whether Boise State was back to being a team that could compete for New Year's Sixes, or if they were on the direction to the bottom and we were going to need a coaching change. I said that at the Memphis game. The Memphis game was a loss, and we got put on a track that was only proven by what the coaching staff decided to do versus San Jose State, and then the loss versus Colorado State. This game is the proving point on whether Boise State is on their way to potentially not even making bowl eligibility, or if they have a chance at salvaging the season and getting to a Mountain West Championship game. The season hangs in the balance with this matchup. I cannot be any more dramatic than that, any more clear about that. I'm not being overly dramatic. That is 100% the facts right now. If Boise State loses this game, they are out of the Mountain West Championship conversation, and they are probably on their way to getting to 6-6 or worse. They may miss out on bowl eligibility if they lose this game. It all hangs in the balance. Can Andy Avalos get the win? I am not predicting it. I think Boise State loses this game 17-27. That's my final score prediction. 17-27. I think this is the game. While the Memphis game woke some people up, the Colorado State game really started to shift the fan base to a point where we're now at a discussion point. This is going to be the game that pushes the top, that the majority of the fan base shifts over clearly. I think the majority of the fan base is already there, but clearly shifts the majority of the fan base over to the side that says we need a change. And at that point, it will be in the hands of the department on whether or not Boise State moves in that direction this season or next season, but this is going to be that turning point. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Andy Avalos proves me wrong. As a fan, I want Boise State to succeed. As a fan, I don't want them. Some people have put out on social media, oh man, at this point, the silver lining if we lose is that at least Andy Avalos is gone. I'm kind of, in this game, I'm almost kind of rooting that we lose because then Andy Avalos, I'm not doing that. That is not the viewpoint that a fan should have. A fan should always support their team and root their team on no matter what. No matter what, they should root their team on to success and support them. And I'm going to. I'm going to support Boise State. However, supporting the team and wanting the team to win doesn't mean you don't also hold the people in charge of that team and who are part of that team accountable. I want Boise State to prove me wrong. I want them to win. I want them to win out. I want them to go to Mountain West Championship game. I want Andy Avalos to remain the head coach because he shows that he can be the head coach. Unfortunately, right now, nothing he's shown so far has shown that he can be the head coach of Boise State. And I think as we continue to progress through this season, that viewpoint is going to be proved further and further correct. Again, 27-17, final score prediction. Let me know in the comments your thought process on this game, where you think this program is going, and what your score predictions are. I want to hear all of them, and I really, really hope that I am wrong. The more videos that we do here towards the end of the season with this really tough stretch, you're going to hear me saying that more and more and more, but this is the prove it point. I hope in my game review I get to sit down and say, wow, they surprised me. What's next? But that's going to be a video made in a few days here. So we'll see where that ends up going. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe. Give me your thoughts. Be part of this discussion. And as always, win or lose, no matter who the head coach is, no matter what they're doing, no matter what the team is doing, go Big Blue!